One of the biggest stars of the 80s was, without a doubt, Mr. T, and he had a lot of crazy merchandise, so let's take a look at it. Welcome back to the Junkman, everybody. It's me, the Junkman, coming back at you with another video. And it's time to pity the fool, because we're going to look at merchandise release related to Mr. T, or maybe the 18, but Mr. T's the center of it sometime in this merchandise, which is odd. You know, it's a show that's ensemble cast, but they really focused on Mr. T and some of the merchandise. But today we're going to look at some of that odd Mr. T. If you didn't grow up in the 80s, you just can't figure out how huge Mr. T was, how popular this guy was. Not just the character from the 18, but Mr. T himself. He was huge in the 80s. So we're going to look at some of his wacky merchandise, because like I said, he had a lot of stuff. And let's just start right here with one mean eraser. That's right, that's not one normal eraser, that's one mean eraser. So weird looking face, it's all one color. They didn't give his hair, you know, it looks like skin. His mohawk looks like skin. It's just really weird, if you ask me. And before tablets, kids today, they go on road trips with the tablet. Well, before tablets, what did we have? This little sketch pad. I don't even know what the technical name for it is, but I always liked that it had a little place to put your pencil in. Remember that? You open it up, get your little pencil out, slide it back in. It was a really hard pencil. It was a little red. Well, I guess it's a pencil. It was red plastic. But here you would write it on there. You draw Mr. T, whatever you want to do, lift it up, and it would disappear. I still to this day don't know how it works. It was amazing. You could dribble, write all over you wanted, and unless you took your fingernail and scratched it around on the inside under the flat part, it would get all on your fingernails and everything. Your mom would be like, "Don't eat that stuff." And I was like, "Well, it tastes so good." But anyway, that would kind of stop it from working just right. But anybody remember these? These were all over the place. Well, when you think Mr. T, there's one thing you have to think about, and that's a car. Check this out, the Mr. T remote control car. That's right, Mr. T remote control car. And this is the kind of remote control car your grandma gets you, let's be honest. Has a cord on it. Is anything worse than getting a remote control car with a cord on it? Whew, I think not, but that's a bad looking car. You have to give Mr. T that. What if you wanted to look like Mr. T back in the 80s? Sure, you could cut your hair, but how would you get those big muscles like Mr. T has? Mr. T has big muscles. How do you get them? Well, with the Mr. T dumbbell set. Actually, it's the 18 Junior dumbbell set, but you can look like Mr. T with this right here. Man, I'm sure there's a lot of kids that bought this and tried for about a week to bulk up like Mr. T. Never did happen. What about if you wanted to play Mr. T? You wanted a Mr. T game. Well, you had kind of a card game called, believe it or not, Mr. T card game. I don't know how they came up with that. Must have been some people that went to college. I would have never came up with that one. And then you had a Mr. T board game, which I had. I remember having this, and I was let down because you didn't get to be Mr. T. You just got to be part of his entourage. Who wants to be that? You get a Mr. T game, you want to be Mr. T. It made no sense to me. But probably one of the weirdest Mr. T merchandise has to be this right here. The Mr. T paddle ball. Remember, this is the plastic thing with the ball on it. I could never get it more than hit it twice, and that was lucky if I got it twice. Hate this thing. You play with it, and the ball would pop off, and then your mom would have something to spank you with. Mr. T paddle ball. I know when you think Mr. T, probably one of the first things that comes to your mind is paddle ball, and now you have it. You think there's any paddleball champions out there? You think anybody's like you think they have championships of paddleball? Does any kids today know what paddleball is? Probably not. Well, if you want to see something even weirder than that, how about playing with Mr. T outside in the grass? You could do that with this right here, the Mr. T Water War. This was, I don't know exactly what it did. It was a Mr. T head. It shot water, hooked it to the water hose. There was a lot of things back in the 80s. You hooked to your water hose, shot water all over the place. It was a lot of fun. Well, I don't know about this one, but I meant the water games were fun. This is the Water War. I guess you would have war with Mr. T. What does this thing say? Hit Mr. T and the other side gets wet. Sounds like a girl I used to know back in Albuquerque. But that's a whole different video right there. Let's move on to some gum. Hey, Mr. T, you got any gum? Well, you could. Chain gum. It looks like the chain he wears around his neck, but it's gum. It's just Big League Chew, I guess, stretched out to like a necklace. But this is probably the weirdest gum I've ever seen. Who wants to eat a necklace? At least it looked like his mohawk, I could understand. And who remembers from the makers of color forms, Shrinkadinks? I just like saying I never had it. I think it's something you like draw on and maybe put in the oven. Shrinkadinks. Let's see what it says. Create your own Mr. T collectible. Just color, cut, and bake. I thought you did. I thought don't put it in your easy bake oven, but you bake it. I don't know why. They shrink like magic before your very eyes. What do you see them? They're in the oven being baked. Ages 6 and up. But there you go, Mr. T after shrinking. I remember this, but I don't remember exactly what it is. But how about a Mr. T action figure? There's a lot of different Mr. T action figures, 18 figures, Mr. T figures. But we'll look at this one right here. From Gloob, Wrestling Mr. T. Now you're thinking, oh, that's a cool looking figure right there. I like he's got him in the ring. But probably what you're thinking most is Junkman. I come here to see something I don't see on every other YouTube channel. I want to see that Mr. T doll naked. Well, here you go. Get your eyes ready. Feast on that. I'll let you look at it for a few minutes. There we go, right there. I know you enjoyed that. Some of you was looking at the Mr. T private parts, or lack of, and you other guys was looking at that penny in the picture. Let's move on. How about if you wanted to dress up like Mr. T? You could do it with this superhero Mr. T set. Now, I don't know what the smock looked like. I didn't look it up. I'm sure it had Mr. T's face on it and said Mr. T. I never liked that. Mr. T don't wear a shirt with his face on it that says Mr. T. He wears a blue jean vest with the sleeves cut off and feathers and necklaces and everything. But what if you want to ride around the neighborhood and impress the ladies? Well, sadly, there was no van for you to drive around in, but there was a Mr. Will, Big Will. There's no way you couldn't look cool on a big wheel. If it was a Mr. T big wheel, he was guaranteed to look even cooler. Now here's one that's probably more 18, but check this out. 4 knitting patterns. I don't know what the patterns are, but who wants to? People that's into knitting, they're not into the 18. Sorry. I guess it's for the grandmas out there that want to knit their grandson a Mr. T blanket, but believe me, the kids didn't want that either. Now, maybe if she put Murdoch on it, we would want that. Who didn't love Murdoch? I know everyone was crazy about the 18. Sadly, there's not enough Murdoch merchandise out there, or even Dwight Short's merchandise to do a video on just him. Sadly, he should have been a bigger star than Mr. T. But let's say you wanted to break Mr. T apart and put him back together again. Well, you could with Mr. T puzzles. Check this out. And a color book, activity book. It was also in the picture. There, one of those easy pictures. Remember, that was an easy one. Big old pieces put together in 3 seconds. So it was really easy. Not like those damn slide pictures. Remember those little plastic, had little tiles on it. You had to slide. They were the hardest puzzles ever. God, I hated those. And let's wrap this up looking at some Mr. T books. That's right, Mr. T had his own book series back in the 80s. Check this one out here. The best bike ever. Mr. T's riding around on a bike. And this lady, it must be squeaking really bad because this lady's like covering her ears. I don't want to hear it. And he's riding down the road like Tebow. I got to check out this story. I bet it's great. Now you're thinking, that's a cool looking cover. How could I get that on a shirt, man? Well, you can now at junkmanmerch.com. It's one of our new shirts. Check it out at junkmanmerch.com. And if you see this video within the first 24 hours of it being uploaded, $14. $14. You can walk around with Mr. T riding a little girl bicycle. You know you want that. It looks awesome. But let's get back to his book series here. How about one called Phony Baloney? This is, I don't know, I guess the counterfeiter. I guess this kid's making counterfeit money, or maybe he's making counterfeit bologna sandwiches. Maybe it's really spam. But that's Phony Baloney. And probably my favorite book is probably this one here called Hey Little Kid, Don't Show Me That Again. I guess Mr. T saw it once and knew he'd get in trouble if he saw it again. I mean, you might see it one time accident. If you see it 2 times, you're going to jail. Well, that's a look at some really strange Mr. T merchandise. Did you have any of this? Did you want any of this? Do you want it now? You're like, I got to get that Mr. T shirt at junkmanmerch.com. Or you're like, I got to get that Mr. T big wheel and drive it to work every day. I would be so cool. And you're right, you would be cool. But that's a look at Mr. T merchandise. Let me know in the comments below if you had any of this or maybe something really strange that I didn't cover here. Let me know that in the comments and maybe we'll do a part 2. I want to thank you for watching. Thumb up so you like my content. Subscribe to the channel. We'll talk again soon.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.